Aloha and good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, March 6, 2025, and the time is now 9:01 a.m. Will the Committee on Zoning meeting please come to order? I would like to welcome committee members, Councilmember Okimoto. Councilmember Cordero is participating remotely by video conference, and I understand that Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam and Councilmember Wire should be here shortly. Councilmember Cordero, in accordance with Section 902-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, please identify each person who is with you at your location.
I am alone, Chair. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways: remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 5, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 113 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time, as may be necessary, will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. For those who are joining us by telephone only, I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom to be called on. Some friendly reminders and tips: video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you're also watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you're called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, in accordance with HRS Section 92-3.7, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audio-visual contact with you and cannot reconvene until we reestablish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. Moving to agenda item number 1 for action, Resolution 25-49. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Lucas J. Maj and Mary L. Lan to allow for the demolition of one single unit dwelling and one non-conforming maid's quarters and the construction of a new 3-story single-unit North Makai dwelling with attached 2-car and 1-car garages, now new 3-story single-unit South or Mauka dwelling with attached 2-car carport, new 5.3-foot tall concrete masonry unit retaining wall between the proposed north and south dwellings, and new individual wastewater system for the south dwelling on an approximately 20,645 square foot shoreline lot, Zone R10 Residential District, located at 46029 Lilipuna Road in Heiea, Oahu, and identified as tax map key 46001-011. Members, we have posted on the agenda a proposed CD1 version of the resolution which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. The project's building permit application was accepted as complete on June 12, 2024, and may rely on the 40-foot shoreline setback that was in effect through June 30th, 2024, provided that the applicant obtains the building permit for the project by June 30th, 2025. If the project's building permit is not obtained by June 30th, the project must instead comply with the 60-foot shoreline setback required under ROH Chapter 26, effective as of July 1st, 2024. I understand that the applicant's agent submitted the project's PowerPoint presentation to the clerk's office at the very end of the day on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. In the presentation, the applicant's agent is requesting an extension of the June 30th, 2025 deadline to obtain a building permit for the project. The applicant's agent did not communicate this request to me prior to the deadline for amendments last Friday, February 28th. Therefore, I have no intention of considering this request, nor did the agent request an extension of the deadline for the council to adopt Resolution 25-49. As a reminder to all applicants and their agents that are seeking discretionary approvals from the council, you should schedule meetings with the council members as soon as possible. For complex projects, preferably immediately after the processing agency, in this case DPP, transmits its report to the council. This will provide council members, myself, and our staff enough time to review the project, consider any conditions of approval, and avoid the need for extensions of the deadline for council action. The CD1 version of the resolution makes it clear in condition H1 that under a 60-foot shoreline setback, the north dwelling must be relocated outside of the 60-foot shoreline setback area, and if necessary, the south dwelling must be relocated further mauka to accommodate the relocation of the north dwelling. The 60-foot shoreline setback area, any relocation of the dwellings, and any associated regrading of the slope topography of the project site must be shown on the project's revised building permit plans. The project's building permit application does not comply with certain land use ordinance development standards and must address the stairs and wall on the mauka portion of the project zoning lot, which encroach into the required front yard setback and are required to comply with ROH 21-4.30. The project's building permit plans must also show that the project is providing the required 10 off-street parking spaces and satisfies the parking design requirements under ROH 21-6.5B, which require that when 5 or more off-street parking spaces are provided, all vehicles must be able to enter and exit the street in a forward-facing manner. The CD1 version of the resolution notes these discrepancies in condition I, which relates to compliance with other city ordinances and governmental requirements, including the land use ordinance. Due to these required changes to the project's building permit plans, it may be difficult for the project to obtain a building permit by June 30th. And if the building permit is not obtained, as I mentioned, by that date, it will trigger the 60-foot shoreline setback and require relocation of the project's dwellings. The CD1 version of the resolution also adds a new condition B to require that the project plans, including the attached exhibits and the calculations required by the land use ordinance, be updated to remove 23 square feet of the project zoning lot that has been lost to erosion, as shown on the certified shoreline survey dated March 15, 2024. All development standard requirements under the land use ordinance are required to be based on the project zoning lot square footage that remains in the state land use urban district. Joining us in the council chamber is Mark Howland from Well Environmental Services, LLC, the applicant's agent, who will be providing a brief presentation of not more than 5 minutes. For your information, the presentation is available online as miscellaneous communication 142-2025, and I wanted to recognize Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam. Mr. Howland?
Good morning, Council. Thank you, Chair, and Council members for hearing us out. Okay, thank you. So this is a Marsh property on Lapuna Road in Kaneohe. You know the first stage, we're at the final stages, and we rely on the Council to carefully regard the project. This is a photo of the site. This is the upper house near the road. And so the proposed is the construction of 2 single-family dwellings, replacing the 2 existing single-family dwellings on the same, roughly the same footprints on a parcel in Kaneohe. The parking spaces and the wall that was intruding have been removed the plans have been altered to reflect that. The construction's over 500,000, so it's an SMA major. It's been sent to the different agencies. We met with the Kaneohe board on the project. We're showing you some confusion on the parking spaces. The 2D version of the project shows the carport on the lower level and the two-car garage on the upper level superimposed upon each other. This picture shows you how the carport is under the garage. So that's why there's confusion on the vehicles. On the 3D rendering, it shows why. This is the plot plan of the project. We're reflecting the loss of 23 square feet to the shoreline on the shoreline survey. This is the SMA supplemental map, which shows the different lines for vegetation, 0.5, 1, 2.0, 3.2 on the property. This is the floor plan of the proposed property as existing now. And this shows you the sample of the foundations of the dwellings and the steepness of the terrain. As I understand, the request for consideration resolution changes cannot be honored. We understand that, and so we'll skip through that section. The entire parcel's in the SMA zone. This is the plot plan, plat map of the property. The highlighted yellow is the location of the property at the very end of the peninsula. This is the shoreline map, survey map of the property. That dock and boathouse building is in a conservation district permitted. This is the this is the 0.5 sea level rise. As you can see, it's pretty much confined to the shoreline. This is the, oh, that was the 3.2, I'm sorry. This is the annual highway flooding and the various coastal erosion lines. This has not been studied by UH in this area. The closest one is by the Marine base. So there's no real lines to show you for coastal erosion. Category 4 hurricane is not affected. That little white circle you see at the tip of the peninsula is the location of the parcel. And outside of the fact that the Marine base looks like it's going to be severely hit, this area is not going to be. This is the geology map of the site. Basically, it's all volcanic soils. So in honor of the chair's request to keep the presentation short, we'll just gladly answer any questions. It's going to be a local family redeveloping their property. So that's what the property currently looks like from an aerial view now. These are various site photos of the property. And basically, I'll answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Members, are there any questions for the applicant's agent? Seeing no questions, before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. You can have a seat. Thank you. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? Please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name. Seeing no other testifier, proceeding on with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else standing by remotely who would like to testify on this item? Please use the raise hand feature to indicate your desire to speak. Seeing no testifiers, we are going to bring up the administration for the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair.
Welcome, Director.
Thank you. We are supportive of the proposed CD1, and I have staff here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions for the Department of Planning and Permitting? Seeing no questions, I will be making my recommendation. The chair recommends that Resolution 25-49 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 25-49 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 2 for action, Resolution 25-69. This resolution authorized pursuant to HRS Section 201H38 exemptions from certain city application fees and infrastructure or public works fees and charges for the development of the Waiakoa Affordable and Market Rate Housing Project on 4.18 acres of land located at 756 Oahe Street in Kaka'ako, Oahu, and identified as tax map key 121053032. Members, we have posted on the agenda a proposed CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. I'd like to propose a verbal amendment to the CD1 version of the resolution to correct the project zoning lot tax map key number in the first whereas clause to reflect 21053-032 instead of 23053-032. By way of background, the project is within the Kaka'ako Community Development District, which is under the planning and zoning jurisdiction of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. The project is also located within the Kamehameha School's Kainalu o Kaka'ako Master Plan area. The project was processed by the Hawaii Housing, Finance, and Development Corporation. As proposed, the project consists of two 33-story residential towers atop a 9-floor parking podium, total of 42 stories, 400 feet in height, with a residential liner for the parking podium, 1,667 vehicle parking spaces, of which 1,521 will be residential and 146 will be commercial, 10 loading spaces, long-term and short-term bicycle parking spaces, a 26,441 square foot central community plaza that serves as a public gathering place, 69,143 square feet of commercial and retail space, and 77,665 square feet of recreational areas, both outdoor and indoor facilities. The project includes 1,032 for-sale studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom dwelling units, of which 200 affordable units will be available to households earning 120% of the AMI, 420 affordable units will be available to households earning 140% of the AMI, and 412 units will be market rate units. I acknowledge that the State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development commented that the project's depth of affordability appears limited given the substantial exemptions being requested, and stated that the project's application would be strengthened. The project included income limits of 80% to 100% of the area median income. While there is definitely a need for housing to accommodate households earning 80 to 100% of the area median income, and this body has approved many of those projects, note that the project is a for-sale development that is targeted toward the workforce gap group, which includes local families, including teachers, flight attendants, firefighters, police officers, nurses, and other careers. There is definitely a need for this type of workforce housing, and this gap group often has difficulty competing for market rate housing. The project's Mauka Tower includes a total of 442 dwelling units, 276 affordable, and 166 market. The Makai Tower includes a total of 440 dwelling units, 260 affordable, and 180 market. and the parking podium residential liner includes a total of 150 dwelling units, 84 affordable and 66 market rate units. All of the project's affordable for-sale units will remain affordable for a minimum of 10 years and will be subject to the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation Shared Appreciation Equity Program and 10-year buyback restrictions. With respect to land uses and development standards, since the project is under the jurisdiction of the Hawaii Community Development Authority, the resolution is not approving any exemptions from the Land Use Ordinance, ROH Chapter 21. The CD1 version of the resolution approves waivers of deferrals of city fees and charges and an exemption from Building Energy Conservation Code requirements relating to electrical vehicle infrastructure. The CD1 version of the resolution does not include the waiver of park dedication requirements, which was included in the as-introduced resolution because the city's park dedication requirements do not apply in Kaka'ako, which is under the jurisdiction of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. The resolution also adds various conditions of approval. The project site has undergone numerous historical investigations associated with the removal of 3 1,000-gallon underground gasoline storage tanks. The state of Hawaii Department of Health issued a site cleanup, completed status, and no further action letter for the project site in August 1994. However, an environmental site assessment conducted in April 2024 determined there were several recognized environmental conditions on the project site, including petroleum, heavy metals, and polychlorinated biphenyl contamination. The CD1 version of the resolution includes Condition B, which requires the applicant to manage, remove, and dispose of all hazardous and regulated materials from the building, soil, and groundwater on the project site. The project site is also 1.61 miles from the property boundary of the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport and approximately 17,639 feet from the end of runway 26L, the airport. The CD1 version of the resolution includes Condition I, which requires the applicant to comply with all Federal Aviation Administration and State of Hawaii Department of Transportation regulations, rules, requirements, and guidelines regarding development activities in close proximity to airports and airport runways. Finally, the CD version of the resolution includes all of the transportation and traffic conditions that were recommended by the Department of Planning and Permitting, which are meant to address and mitigate traffic impacts directly attributed to this project. I'd like to welcome to the chamber Council Chair Waters, Councilmember Wire, as well as Councilmember Topola. Joining us in the chamber is Harry Lake from KP Waiakoa GP LLC, the applicant, who will be providing a brief presentation of not more than 5 minutes. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 140-220. Welcome.
There we go. Thank you, mahalo. Aloha kako and mahalo, Zoning Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair DeSantis Tam, and members of the Zoning Committee for your time today. My name is Harry Lake. I'm the CEO of COA Partners, the co-applicant of Waiakoa. I'm joined here in chambers with many team members, one of which is Kaio Kane from Casa and Cook. We also have Pualani Hao from Kamehameha Schools, which is a master developer and landowner. We also have our design partners here as well from DPI, as well as our consultants as well from RM Towel. I'll be leading the conversation for about 5 minutes, but all of our entire team is available for any questions that you might have. First off, we're in complete agreement. We reviewed and studied the posted CD1 and have no objections to the CD1, so I want to get that clear. Chair, you've done a phenomenal job summarizing the what of what we're doing, and your staff has done a phenomenal job helping us submit documents that kind of describe the project. So I want to allocate some of the time to why we're doing the project. Waiakoa is the unification of missions of 3 character-driven organizations: Kamehameha Schools, Casa and Cook, and COA Partners. I think you know a lot about Kamehameha Schools and Casa and Cook, but let me share my mana'o about COA Partners. COA Partners, our mission is pretty simple: just bring together character-driven men and women to provide real estate solutions to clients who feel called to. We do major projects across the country. We're middle of doing an 88 mixed-use project in South Maui. We're doing a $1 billion transit-oriented development project on the mainland. We also have done about $1 billion worth of healthcare facilities across America. But on a personal level, that's what we do. Why we exist is Waiakoa. On a personal level, I grew up in subsidized housing about a mile from here in a project called Ka'ulawela on Ala Street. Subsidized housing, I can appreciate the need for affordable housing for all of our ohana. I used to catch the city bus going right by Honolulu every school day to McKinley High School, where I graduated there in 1995, which is obviously adjacent to Kaka'ako. So when we think about our project, this is truly a homecoming for me personally and for many of us as part of the team. Furthermore, my parents had passed away fairly young at 8 and 12, and the only thing stable in my life at this time was this affordable housing project called Ka'ulawela. And so when I think about using our gifts and talents to, provide for the community, Waiakoa resonates with that. Secondly, Kamehameha Schools was a big part of my education. So after graduating McKinley High School and after serving the Hawaii Army National Guard, they helped pay for my education at UH and onto Harvard Business School, which is unfathomable when you think about where I grew up. But for them, I'm not standing before you today. Furthermore, Castle & Cook, Hawaii's home builder, has been around for a long time. I worked for them while I was going to UH, and they helped educate me about the challenges of developing here in Hawaii. And so Waiakoa brings together a full circle of my entire life to provide our gifts and talents to develop homes for our Hawaii ohana. When we think about our project, this is a little bit of why, but when we dig into the nuts and bolts of our project, we're really excited about it. Waiakoa will provide, as Chair mentioned, 1,032 residential units in 2 beautifully designed towers on a podium that's intended to represent a community within a community. Waiakoa will be the heart or the pico of Kamehameha School's 9-block district, and will host basically the heart of the night markets. We will have 620 affordable units, 60% of the total project, which will be the largest contributor of for-sale affordable housing throughout the entire master plan. We'll have 412 mid-market residential units, to Chair's point, attacking the gap that's hard to solve in our housing supply. It's very difficult to provide, mid-range market units that everybody's trying to solve. You're either having ultra affordable housing, which is heavily subsidized, which we're not doing, and as well as luxury housing as well in the high end. That gap is very difficult, but luckily we have a talented group of design, construction, and development professionals that are happy to engage and roll up our sleeves to solve this much needed demand. Our residents are exactly like Chair mentioned, the teachers, the police officers, my family, federal workers. These are the people that have a hard time qualifying for these homes but deserve a place of dignity. We would argue that our project will compete extraordinarily well against those that are paying 3-4 times as much. So the quality, we want to lose sight of the quality of the homes that we're developing. The process that we're in right now, we've completed a 201H process that we're in the middle of, and fortunately we got HHFDC's approval in February. We're the largest block in the Kaka'ako Master Plan, KS's Kaka'ako Master Plan, 4.2 acres, and that's a sense of stewardship that we don't take lightly. As a result, we've designed a project that really speaks to the community and will speak intentionally in the design. The existing uses are industrial in nature, and Kamehameha Schools has done a phenomenal job working with existing tenants to transition them to other locations, and we are not displacing any residential units. All 1,032 units are incremental add to Hawaii's housing supply. Like I said, we're building a community, but we're part of a larger community, and we're a piece of the overall puzzle that makes up the Kaka'ako Master Plan that Kamehameha School is responsible for. And so we're glad to be part of that. So we have LIHTC to our EVA. We have ultra luxury along Ala Moana, but we're filling that gap to create a holistic community, and we're really excited about doing that. As we mentioned, we're hitting multiple segments. We've got 200 units at 120% AMI or less, 420 units at 140% AMI or less, and then 412 units at mid-market. And that is a segment, again, that we believe we're responsible for in terms of filling out the overall puzzle. what we're really excited about on this particular project is that we're bringing together a community. And so we've intentionally designed our podium to accommodate over 68,000 square feet of neighborhood-facing retail. That's in conjunction with over 40,000 square feet of open space. That's over 100,000 square feet of community space at the podium of our building that will also serve the 1,000 units. And what's really nice is that Kamehameha Schools is a great steward of this commercial space and will be basically taking care of that area, which will then provide some relief in the HOA dues as it relates to our residents. I'll keep zipping through. I realize that we're a little bit tight on time. This is a little bit of a rendering of our plaza, which again is 25,000 square feet. It anchors what will serve the night markets. That is a neighborhood celebration throughout Kiaʻāina, where we'll have music festivals and things of that nature. We also have a plaza that will be a connection from park to park, where people will walk gracefully along what is now Cook Street, and so we'll completely reimagine that walkable environment. Furthermore, we'll be self-contained in terms of parking. All the parking will be wrapped with residential units. And so we've been very careful on that design to bring it down to the human scale. And this particular design is the culmination of all the best practices that DPI, Castle Cook, and the rest of our design team has really benefited from. And so we're really excited that we're able to unleash all these best practices for the benefits of our local ohana. This is a rendering of our streetscape. So again, beautiful. I would like to argue that this project, though 60% affordable and attacking the mid-market segment, will compete with the ultra-luxury part. Our vision is that when you look up at this building, it's completely lit up at night because there's real local families living here. Furthermore, I would argue that a lot of folks that are paying 2 or 3 times as much in adjacent buildings would be welcome to come here, and I promise you they'll be jealous of the environment that our local family is living in right now. We also have a really active podium, amenity podium that will, again, allow people that whether you bought a studio, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, you'll be able to host parties. You'll be able to host your ohana, your extended family, gracefully, with pride, dignity, right here at our podium in the way that you do anywhere else throughout our state. And so we're really excited about that. All the amenities are available to everyone, malama all. There's no separate entries. There's no sort of a classification within our building. And so that's the one thing I think about, everybody says, wouldn't it be great if you'd be 100% affordable? Well, the reality is that we are bringing everybody together. We're not separating buildings. We're bringing everyone together and providing the very best environment for all of our ohana. And then we rise up the tower. In essence of time, I'll sort of yield my time, but they have 13 units in each tower, rising up to 42 floors. We have a list of exemptions. Like I said, we have no objection to the filed CD1, and we appreciate your support in order to make this project a reality. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Members, are there any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Cordero, do you have any questions since you're virtual? Any other questions here? If not, I'm going to move on. Before I call up thank you so much. Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Wait. Is there anyone in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? Please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name. I understand that there are individuals who are in the back of the chamber on the left here. Are you here to testify? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Is the Board of Water Supply here to testify?
Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina, Chair Waters, and members of the committee. Kathy Mitchell with the Board of Water Supply. We submitted our written testimony on the proposed committee draft to Resolution 25-69, and we submitted suggested amendments to page 3, line item 11. Available for questions.
Members, are there any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are going to be proceeding on with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
And no one else standing by remotely. Therefore, we're going to move forward with the administration. We have Don Takeuchi Apuna, Director of Planning and Permitting. And if HHFDC is here in person or online, please feel free to come and say something and allow the members of the committee to ask questions. Okay, can you move forward, Director Apuna?
Yes, we're supportive of the proposed CD1. Thank you. And we're here to answer any questions.
And members, if you don't mind, I'm going to have HHFDC. Sir, are you from HHFDC?
Yes, Chair. Dean Minakami, Executive Director of HHFDC. So we submitted written testimony. Our board approved supporting the exemptions on February 13th. And just a few notes that I'd like to make. You know, we appreciate the council's support for 201H projects. Based on our count since 2020, the council has approved 26 201H projects, which is a great thing. But only 3 of those projects were for sale projects. And it's very important that we support for sale projects for a couple reasons. One is that it gives our residents an opportunity for home ownership, and you all know the benefits of that, so I won't go into it. But another important aspect is that these projects don't rely on government funding to be financially viable. They are privately financed, and the developer is taking all of the risk to build the projects. At HHFDC, we are very often the primary financier for affordable housing projects. It's common for us to invest, tens of millions of dollars into a single project. So projects like Waiakua, which don't rely on government funding, are very important because they allow us to stretch our dollars to other projects. And just want to note that we just had our funding round for 2025. It closed last month. We had a record number of applications, which is a good thing. But unfortunately, we're seeing that costs are also increasing significantly. There's construction costs, interest rates, insurance rates. They're all raising the cost of development. So it's going to be challenging for us to maintain the same pipeline that we did in the past because our dollars aren't going to go as far. So we respectfully urge the council to approve this project so it can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions for either DPP or HHFDC? Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. Dean Minakami, please. Thank you for pointing out that since 2020, the council has approved approximately 26 201H projects, but only 3 for sale. One of the things I've noticed, Section K3, the exemptions are only going to apply to the units that are at 120% AMI and not 140% AMI. How do you think that'll impact the project?
Well, I'm sure that it's going to be added cost for the project. Basically, those costs are passed on to home buyers. So if it is possible, we would respectfully ask that if the exemptions can be made to 140% units, that would be helpful.
Okay, and again, pointing out that only 3 so far out of the 26 approved were for sale projects. You just said that, turning the page just for a second, you did say that you just closed the round of applicants for 2025. How many applicants did you have?
There were 35 applications received, which is the most we've ever received.
I see. And how many of those asked for LIHTC financing?
They're all for LIHTC financing. So there's 35 applications for a total of, I think, about 4,000 units. There's no way we can fund all of those units. We can fund maybe 1,000 to a little over 1,000 in a given year.
I know, and in one instance, perhaps one developer could take up all of those credits.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you. I want to build on Chair Waters' question about the changes to the wastewater system facility charge exemption, which, if you do the math, comes out to about $2,500 per unit that would be imposed upon the 120 to 140% AMI. Folks, was this a recommendation that came from DPP? I just want to understand where that came from, because somebody drafted the original version and then, we have a CD1 that DPP purported to support. So I just want to see if it came from DPP.
Good morning, council members. Alex Beatty with DPP. That comment came from our site development division, and we understand that it's consistent with the city council's standard procedures for issuing these kinds of exemptions, that they only apply to the 120 and below.
And then are those standards, did we pass that by resolution at some point?
Yes.
Okay.
For clarification purposes, however, in this instance, we went further than that.
I don't believe so. I think that it's just the 120 and below that are.
No, we actually deferred for 140 as well.
Okay, sorry, then I
And that
misunderstood.
is to be consistent with previous projects of this magnitude. Again, for my purposes, I felt that it was a deferral. It's not an exemption. It will be due on the certificate of occupancy.
Yes, and the DPP does support that to defer for up to 140 AMI. We felt that particularly with some of the financial shortcomings we're seeing for other wastewater projects, as long as the money is obtained at some point, that is fine, and the delay to obtain that money is an acceptable one.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair, do you have any more questions? Members, any other questions? If not, I'm going to be making my recommendation. The Chair recommends that Resolution 25-69 be amended to the posted CD1 as further amended as we discussed to correct the project zoning lot tax map key number in the first whereas clause to 21053-032 instead of 23053-032, and to make miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The Chair then recommends that Resolution 25-69 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 3. For action, the committee will review and evaluate the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission and make recommendations to the council on whether the ordinance provisions establishing the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission should be retained, amended, or repealed. By way of background, the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission was initially established in 1993 by Ordinance 93-55, but was never constituted. The commission was subsequently reestablished in 2022 by Ordinance 22-33 and Resolution 22-279. Commission members were appointed, and the commission has been meeting and undertaking its responsibilities. Members, on February 3rd, 2025, we received a report from the commission that is numbered as Departmental Communication 85-2025. The report provides information on the commission's accomplishments, challenges, transparency efforts, communication efforts, operating costs, and a recommendation that ROH Chapter 33, Article 10, which governs the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission, be retained without change. We have here today in the council chambers, I believe, Commissioner Mahealani Cipher. Are you going to provide the overview, or is DPP going to provide the overview? Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to recognize you then, and then we will have the department provide the overview of the key points in the commission's report. For your information, the presentation is available online as Departmental Communication 159, 2025. Please proceed and identify yourself and move forward with the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Waters and committee members. My name is Michael Catt. I'm the acting historic planner at DBP and staff assigned to the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission. I just would like to, first say thank you to the chair for all your support for this commission. As you noted, this commission was initially enacted in 1993, and it took almost 30 years for it to be implemented. So we had our first meeting in July of 2023, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. So thank you for allowing us to get started on that. Allow me to introduce you to our commissioners. So we have 9 members on this commission that are experts in their disciplines, ranging from architecture, history, archaeology, planning, architectural history, Hawaiian culture, anthropology, ethnography, and sociology. Our chair is Kehau Abad, and our vice chair is Glenn Mason. Each of these members is, or they have a 5-year term, which has been staggered. So some of these members have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5-year terms. Our newest member is Tina Bushnell, and she replaced Nenea Lowe. So these are our professionals, and they have been wonderful to work with. But getting on to our report, the purpose for this commission is really to, in short, protect the existing sites here on Oahu, to encourage the maintenance of those historic sites, to go out and further identify new historic sites that might not have been previously identified, and then to also educate and advocate for policies to protect them. One of the main accomplishments of this commission in their short time that they've been operating is that they have now gotten the city recognized as a certified local government. This is a huge accomplishment, and it makes Hawaii the first state to have 100% participation in this program. It meant that we had to not only pass an ordinance and create a commission, but we had to prove that we had an inventory of sites and a plan for how to accomplish historic preservation in our community. So now that we are a participant in this program, we are eligible for matching grants that allow us to fund historic preservation projects in our community. These are matching, so we do have to be budgeted for that, but I can get into that later. One of the initial projects that this commission would like to undertake with the CLG grant would be to fund a comprehensive study of the Kailua sand berms to help better identify burial sites that haven't been previously identified, and so that we have a better understanding where these sensitive areas there to advocate then for better regulations and policies. A factor, though, that has kind of inhibited this commission is that it still doesn't have a dedicated staff position. So I am the acting staff for this commission, but the ordinance requires that a position be created. And it has been difficult to form that position, largely because there isn't a job description that we can easily fit into. So that has to be first created. So there's just been some bureaucratic obstacles that we've been trying to navigate, but fortunately we've had a lot of support from the administration, from DHR and BFS to figure out how to navigate that. So we imagine that it's not just one position that we will likely need. There's a lot that we would like to do, and so we're hoping for multiple positions for to support this commission. But that is one thing that has kind of inhibited the commission. Statement of measures implemented by the commission to enhance transparency. So all of our meetings are held both in person and remotely, and so we hold all those decisions are made during those meetings. So we have them on the last Tuesday of the month, and we've provide opportunity for people to be added to a mailing list so that they can know about those meetings ahead of time. We have both those materials on our website so that people can access that or watch previous meetings because they're all recorded. And we also have the opportunity for testimony for any item that is being discussed by the commission. What measures has the commission implemented for responsiveness? So we are beginning to get more and more traction as people start to learn more and more about this commission. So we are getting inquiries not only from council members but from the public. And so the chair and myself respond to those as efficiently as we can. But it is one of those things where more and more people are starting to learn about it. So we're starting to get a lot more questions asked to us. The annual costs for operating this commission. So because the dedicated staff position hasn't been created yet, and these commissioners are volunteers, we don't really have anything to report to you for this round. As acting staff for the commission, my salary comes out of the DPP's budget for LUPD. So we're hoping that in the next round that we can have more dedicated to creating multiple positions or even to funding those certified local government grants. Those are something that I said are matching. So we have to pay for the work first and then get reimbursed for it later. So it makes getting those projects through the approval process kind of tricky when the funding has to first come from the government. I've been working with the other counties to kind of hear what their experience has been about that, and they said that the timing for how those funds get dispersed is tricky. So in our next budget, that would be something that the commission would probably want to have some support with.
Are you finished?
Oh, I'm just wrapping up, but these last two, we're not proposing any changes.
Okay, I just didn't know you were silent
so
there.
we haven't been operating long enough to ask for any new amendments to the ordinance. and then also to our powers or organization. But I'm available for questions if you have it.
Sure. Members, if you don't mind, I'd like to pose the question to the Director of DPP, if you don't mind, Michael, but you could stand by. Members, I'm going to ask my question first, and then we'll go around the room. Director, the report mentions that Michael Catt is currently serving as the Commission staff archaeologist, but he's also staff planner for the department and is supporting the Commission on a part-time special assignment basis. The report requests the establishment of a dedicated full-time staff position to oversee the Commission and manage all of the duties and responsibilities of a historic preservation program, which has been impeded by bureaucratic obstacles. Several questions come to mind here. Why is having a dedicated staff position first not done already? And is it also critical to maintaining the city certified local government status?
Yes, it is critical and important that we have that designated person, the administrator, as well as the other positions to run the commission. There's been delays. I think there's been a lot of back and forth on how we established the administrator position, and so that has caused some delay in getting it up and running. But we are working through that, so we are hoping to soon be able to have that position and the others.
Is that going to be part of your upcoming budgetary request for DPP?
For the administrator, I think we already have that, but for the architect, that is something that we would hope to have.
Okay, but are you going to be proposing it?
I don't.
And the reason is, you know, we're right about to embark on the process.
Right.
And we'll probably bring it up during that time. It's just that you guys need to let us know what you need.
Right.
Because all of this is for naught if we don't adhere to the recommendations, because we want you guys to be strengthened. So the administrator position you have, but you just need to fill it, is that correct?
No, I think we need to establish the position itself, and I think we have to reorg as well.
Okay, but do you have the money for that already?
I believe so.
Okay, well, you got to make sure now.
Yes.
Okay, and then work with, the Human Resources Department or whatever's necessary to get this done. Okay, I'm going to move on to other members first. Other members have any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Aloha, Director. Good morning. My quick question is in regards to SHPD. You know, one of the big obstacles for a lot of people is going back and forth with their approvals through SHPD. So will this somehow alleviate that and kind of be more of an in-house type of approval so we don't have to go through that? What are your thoughts?
Yes, definitely. That was one of the main objectives of this commission, to help kind of filter through and see what needs to go to SHPD or not. We hope that will help with the backlog on the state side.
Yes, that would be great. If we can get people out of that SHPD line waiting for years on a response, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any other questions? Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. The ordinance, I guess, establishing the commission talks about the creation and maintenance of what's called the Oahu Historic Property System. Has this been implemented? Do we have a list of all these properties?
I believe that's a system that we have and that we're continuing to build.
Great. And then the ordinance also calls for the commission to do rulemaking. Has that process started? Are there rules?
It has started. The commission has been working on developing those rules, so we will move forward with that.
This is a bigger picture question. The Oahu Historic Property System identifies historic properties here on the island. Are there any properties on the Oahu list that aren't on the state or federal list?
I'm not sure. I would defer to Michael.
Michael Catt with DPP again. So currently, no, there isn't, or there shouldn't be any properties that are on our inventory that are not on SHPD's inventory. We get a lot of our information from them, so that was one of the first things that this commission looked at, was trying to make sure that when we're running a query in our system, that we're getting they're getting a similar result in theirs. However, that does allow us, or being our own certified local government, we do have a process that allows us to recognize other properties that might have historic value. That's one of the things, though, that the commission is trying to further spell out on what would qualify to be on that inventory. Some of it might be as simple as, these are properties that are eligible for listing on the Hawaii Register, but haven't been nominated or formally recognized. And then there might be other ones that are culturally important, but might not necessarily be eligible for listing, but we'd still want to maybe have some kind of recognition for that.
So do you envision that they start going about listing projects on the county level that maybe aren't on the state or federal level? And I'm getting to something after that.
Yes, so it could be that it is a short list that allows us to identify potentially eligible properties that are then nominated at a later date.
Okay, and the reason why I ask is the real property tax exemptions for historic residential properties only apply to those on the federal list, and then the historic properties in commercial use that get real property tax exemptions, you have to be on either the state or federal list. That seems misaligned, that you're on one but not the other. But if the commission finds that there are properties that are of historic value but haven't made it yet onto the state or federal list, we may in the future look at how that fits in with the real property tax exemptions for such historic properties. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chair Waters.
Thank you. I'm just looking at addressing number 4. The commission uses a public email address to receive and respond to public communications. The email address in the slide deck is dpp@honolulu.gov. It seems very generic. How are you filtering through the stuff that deal with your commission? Or is dpp@honolulu.gov just for the commission?
The commission is in the process of still getting some of those things set up. Right now, we don't have our own specific email, so to say, but we do have things then filtered out and routed to me when people are inquiring about that. It's one of those things where not enough people have learned about us yet to really start inquiring to have that need, but it is certainly something that has come up and will probably have to switch to moving forward.
What is dpp@honolulu.gov? I mean, I'll email it today just to find out what happens when you email dpp@honolulu.gov. But I mean, really, how do you filter that out?
Yeah,
I mean,
it is our general email for all inquiries. We do have, and so we have someone that is monitoring it and able to direct it to the right branch or division. At some point, we would create a more specific email for the commission.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a new DIT director. I bet you'd be super easy to create a new email address. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that should be taking very long. And if you have to put DPP as part of it, like a hyphenation, you can just do OHPC, dpp-ohpc@honolulu.gov. Okay, if there's not any other questions, before we move on to testimony, I just wanted to thank the department as well as the commission Michael. And I also wanted to thank the commissioners and Mahilani Cipher in particular. My first zoning committee hearing in 2021, DPP had come before the committee to recommend that the underlying ordinance that established it be repealed, and Mahilani and others came to testify in opposition. And of course, I heard her and I concurred with her, and we did everything to stop it from being repealed. And although it took a while because of this kabuki dance that was required because the council really didn't have the authority to establish it, the mayor did, but we thought we'd do all the hard work and pass the ordinance and then pass a resolution giving the mayor the authority to stand it up. So I'm just really pleased that we've come this far. We're going to move on to public testimony if there are no other questions by the members. Proceeding with first in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay, is that Mahilani Cipher? Are you going to be testifying?
Aloha mai kako. Once again, we of the Historic Preservation Commission, mahalo all of you for your support in helping us get off the ground. It surprised me when I heard about this review. Normally it's every 5 years, and we've only been around actively in the past 1 year. Although it's been 32 years since the original bill was passed, so I guess it's due. Okay, so for 32 years, we sat and waited to be established. And now we've had 1 year. And I can share a little bit more from what DPP offered earlier about what's going on at the commission. They're working really hard to meet the vision of enhancing the process of review. We want to make sure that we protect our wahipana, our important, legendary, and historic places, but also help that process along, because it's ridiculous it's taking so long. It's almost like on purpose it takes so long, but anyway. I wanted to add a little bit to the presentation given earlier by DPP. Actually, the commission started out working really hard to improve communications with the SHPD, with the database they have in the HICRIS system. And that was one of the challenges we found right away, right off the bat, was a lot of people found that state database system a little challenging. It's still hard for even people who are professionally doing that work. But we have commissioners who are professionals in that field who do it a lot. So they've been trying to open up communications, and we've met with SHPD several times. We've done a lot of stuff for the short period of time we've been operating. One of the things we found, the first meeting actually, was that there were problems with the Betcher property, a historic property owned by the city in Kailua on the beach. And the building was falling apart. And the staff didn't know how important it was historically. And one thing we realized was there were many city properties that were historic properties that were not being properly cared for. That's because the city people didn't know how important they were. So one of the things that we talked about was creating a booklet or a brochure that talks about all of the city's historic properties and why they're important. And also some guidelines on proper maintenance of historic buildings, because the Betcher property was falling apart, and it's really sad. So anyway, that's one of the things that we're working on, along with the sand berm issue in Kailua. We also, there are 4 key kuleana for our commission that were set up in the ordinance that established us. And I think that if we have staff, we should have staff, at least 4 staff. We need a historian, we need a researcher, we need an archaeologist. I just heard today that architect is the first staff they're gonna hire, but anyway, we need at least 4 in order to carry out our proper kuleana. That's my opinion. That's not necessarily something adopted by the commission. I'm just observing it as a regular person. Regarding the openness of our meetings. We have a member of the Corporation Council, a deputy Corporation Council, attends every single meeting, and he gives us a lot of guidance on how we proceed, so we don't do anything that violates the open meetings requirements. As for the other recommendations of DPP, we're really grateful for all their support. I want to tell you, I have worked with the state and the city for many years. HR is the most challenging agency to deal with, more so than budget. HR, if you want to upgrade or downgrade or do anything with personnel, you have to word it a certain way, and the state requires that all the people in certain positions all have the same description, even if the person you were working with is worthy of a better job description or a better job title. So that's part of the challenge I think our DPP staff is dealing with. So we hope they're able to work that out with the state HR and the city HR. Okay, so that's all I have to share with you today. Thank you again for everything you do.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Mahilani? Councilmember Tupola.
Aloha, thank you for being here. Quickly, in the beginning you said it was really difficult to navigate the website. I was wondering, are you talking about like Papakilo or like hawaiianancestry.burial.com or which website specifically?
The HighCrest database, the database that SHPD has.
Oh, the SHPD one.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on like, so you can find some of this information in lots of different nooks and crannies, right? Are you guys thinking that it would be best for us to try to like unify one, and then like where would it be housed? Or?
Well, you know, the goal was to make sure that they all speak the same language, so reviews don't get duplicated, right? I think that we're going to have to go with the state system and find a way to
kind of update theirs.
Yeah.
I guess my second question would be, do you feel like there is any connection, or I guess Kuleana, that maybe like OHA, I mean, OHA has various, initiatives that they would, fund any of this? I'm saying in partnership, not incomplete, but what is your thoughts or the council's thoughts?
I have no idea whether OHA would be interested in that. They have a lot of very intense databases.
Yeah.
If it were my preference, all these databases would speak the same language, whether Hawaiian or English, it doesn't matter. They would all communicate in some effective way. And if we could find an IT person who could marry them all together so that they're all easier for both the professional and the non-professional to understand, that's what we need.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? Please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name. Seeing no other testifiers, we are proceeding with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have Angela standing by.
Angela, please proceed.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young. Testifying in strong support. I hope the office gets a new staff. And after hearing the discussion about bureaucratic obstacles, I can only assume, perhaps, because I've only attended only one meeting at the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission, because, I'm a small team, I can't send my staff there. So perhaps, in assigning the duties for the county's office and its responsibilities, it could be more integrated and in sync with the state if it's not already. I don't want to assume. But after hearing the presenter and the council members' discussion, it seems like the new staff will have to know how to work with the county's office and the state. And also, because it says on the website, the commission operates by going over and reviewing historic sites, which are environmentally sensitive, because we're in Hawaii and it's meant to protect buildings in alignment with Hawaiian characteristics. And after the commission reviews it, it recommends eligible historic sites and then recommends measures to mitigate adverse impacts to historic resources. And the commission must be in accordance of submitting its recommendations of historic sites according to the rules of SHPD for its consideration before it goes over to the SHPD office for review. So as someone who loves Hawaiian culture, I wish they'll find new staff. A good new staff will work well with the state and the county. I gave testimony for House Bill 661 because it will transform
Angela, can you please summarize your comments?
And The bill was trying to raise awareness to protect
Angela,
environmental standards.
thank you so much for your testimony.
It talks about
Clerks, or is there anyone else standing by remotely who would like to testify on this item? Please use the raise hand feature to indicate your desire to speak. Seeing none, members, do you have any other questions or discussion before I make my recommendation? The chair recommends that action on this matter be postponed until the next meeting of the Committee on Zoning scheduled for April 3rd, 2025. In the interim, the chair will take the matter under advisement and prepare a draft report and recommendations for consideration at that meeting. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 4 for discussion, Bill 19, 2025. This bill amends the building code of the City and County of Honolulu to define the criteria for substantial changes during construction that necessitate resubmission of construction documents for approval. For the administration, we have Director Don Takeuchi Apuna, Director of Planning and Permitting.
Thank you, Chair. So Bill 19, just to give some background, is amending the International Building Code. And what is the International Building Code, or IBC? It is the base code intended to protect public health and safety while avoiding both unnecessary costs and preferential treatment of specific materials or methods of construction for commercial, residential buildings, structures, public facilities, and special structures like high-rise buildings. The purpose of the IBC is to ensure these structures meet safety standards regarding structural integrity, fire protection, accessibility, and environmental factors like wind and earthquake resistance. What is a local amendment to the IBC, which is what Bill 19 is? Local amendments refer to specific changes or additions made by a local jurisdiction to the IBC to tailor the code to their unique needs and conditions, such as addressing local climate factors, seismic conditions, or specific construction practices not fully covered by the standard IBC. Each jurisdiction can modify the IBC to fit their specific needs, including adding stricter requirements for certain building types, adjusting design loads based on local conditions, or incorporating unique building materials allowed in the area. What is the purpose of Bill 19? The purpose of the bill is not to adjust designs to local conditions or add stricter requirements for certain building types. The purpose is to eliminate or reduce required review and approval by DPP of changes to and following building permit plans in order to speed up the construction process. By the way, I did a quick Google search last night of other local jurisdictions amending IBC 107.4 and did not find any that are similar to this proposal. The ones I saw of other jurisdictions made no amendments to 107.4. So why is this amendment wanted? Supportive testimony would like to not have to resubmit plans for approval of changes made in the field post-approved building permit. Why do we disagree? There are several important reasons. First, the way our inspection process works is that inspectors inspect to approve plans, meaning they look to ensure that what is constructed in the field matches what has been approved by DPP in the plans under the approved building permit by our plans examiners. Inspectors do not inspect to code. In the future, we would like to train up our inspectors to inspect to code, but that is not the basis of how we currently operate. This bill therefore wrongly assumes that inspectors have all the necessary knowledge of whether a change in design not within the approved plans is to code or not, or is a substantial change. This is why we want revisions to come back through for review and approval to conformance with the code, and then allow inspectors to inspect to those revised approved plans. The inspectors have and should continue to have the discretion to determine whether it's a minor enough change to move forward or to require the change to be reviewed and approved through a review by our plans examiners. Secondly, while we continue to experience bad quality and incomplete plan submittals and excessive review cycles that greatly contribute to the delay of the building permit issuance, this bill would further exacerbate this problem by permitting the design professional to believe that their submittal need not be complete or accurate for what will be realized in the field. The idea that they can fix or change something in the field would obviate and delay the need for specificity and code compliance, would greatly undermine the integrity of the building permit review process, and basically shift review to the inspection process, which again, our inspectors are not currently trained to review to code. We understand that changes to projects happen in the field, but there should be good effort to provide complete, quality, and accurate plans from the building permit review process and not left to the whims of those at the construction phase. Thirdly, the bill lists a mere 4 types of substantial changes. The bill fails to include the universe or myriad of other substantial changes, which are too many and too fact-specific to list. What may seem like a non-substantial change could actually be a substantial change based on the unique circumstances of each project. Projects are not one-dimensional. They affect various disciplines, including building, electrical, fire, mechanical, and zoning. For example, shifting an indoor partition or wall a couple of feet, it does not change the occupancy of a space, but it can significantly affect the fire sprinkler coverage, thus jeopardizing the entire building. This happens quite often, and the design professional thinks that there is no need to modify sprinklers because they did not touch the ceiling or fire sprinkler system. This can cause significant health, safety, and property damage. Fourth, we sympathize and acknowledge developers' needs to get through the permitting and inspection process fast. We've been working on improving and speeding up this process if people haven't noticed. We have made good progress in bringing review times down and continue efforts to bring these times even further so that it will be simple and quick to have a revision reviewed in permitting if a change is in fact made in the field. But we cannot sacrifice safety for speed. We get it, developers need to quickly get in and out, but DPP's jurisdiction for health and safety spans well beyond the time that the project is built. An accurate record of what exists in the field should be documented via approval and review by DPP and be part of our official records. To build or rebuild, it's essential to understand the current approved structure of a property in order to understand what is legal, not legal, and non-conforming. There is great value and importance to have records be accurate. Our city lost a firefighter recently in a building layout that did not match city records. DPP is working with HFD to explore how we can ensure that firefighters enter a building already knowing the structural layout. This bill would allow structures to be something different than what we, the city, know it to be. In our discussions with HFD, they are not supportive of this bill. Finally, our chief building inspector, who's seen it all, explained the dangers begin with safety for residential entry, exits, emergency escape routes, pathways of travel, lighting, and ventilation, all common errors made in the field and place the occupants at risk. Experienced contractors, DIYers, even educated flippers make these mistakes from time to time. DPP inspectors rely upon the review of our examiners for the life, health, and safety of the public. Please allow DPP to continue to protect the life, health, and safety of the public with the current process of requiring review of substantial changes in the field without the restrictions of an incomplete definition of substantial changes. We continue to improve the speed of our processes that will address the issue that is the focus of this bill. Thank you, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Before I call upon the introducer of this measure, I have to tell you that was a very lengthy presentation, and I'm assuming that's going to be disseminated to us?
Yes, I can provide that.
Okay, because I have to tell you, we've been, this is 4 years into my tenure, going on my 5th, and that is probably one of your longest testimonies that you've ever given. And it would have been nice if we all had it in hand, the written testimony, because whoever crafted that, I'm assuming they did in concert with you, spent a lot of time. So I'd like to have that officially disseminated to the members of the committee. Okay? So I'd like to call upon Councilmember Tupola, who introduced Bill 19.
Thank you so much, Chair. Aloha, Director. Yeah, thank you for your comments. It was fairly lengthy. I would have loved to have seen it written. And as well, there was a statement in your testimony that somehow HFD opposes this. I did not see that in testimony. So that'd be hearsay until I see a piece of paper that says that.
Sure.
I also think that, you know, some of the statements that were made were way out there. I mean, this is specifically trying to narrow down us being able to only allow for substantial changes, and some of the testimony actually showed what minor changes they were talking about that would have to go all the way back through the review process and pull another permit for the minor changes. Were you able to review the testimonies that were sent in?
I did.
So I think we're not talking about the same thing. We are not talking about DIYers or flippers or anything. We are actually talking about people who are doing Bill 7 projects, people that have been working with DPP for a long amount of times, architects, people who are certified, who have been qualified in their field for over 30 years. These are people that literally go through this and they get stuck because a small minor change requires a start all over again. And we'll have some of the testimonies say that. But I do think that at the end of the day, one of my concerns is that if there are ways for us, and this is not modifying the building code. So I know what the International Building Code, this is not saying, let's change the building code to federal needs. This is saying that our definition of substantial change should be iterated so that it's clear. The only problem that I see people having is that there is too much discretion. The gray area that they have to work in that triggers them being able are forced to start all over to get a permit. So I just want us to make it clear that in no way are we suggesting that this sacrifice any safety or any building code that is already in the law. We're merely suggesting that if there is a way for us to get people out of the line that don't need to do it for minor changes, is there a way forward for us to do that? Do you possibly have any amendments, because your statement said that there are so many substantial changes that we can't list it? Did you guys have a CD for us to consider?
We do not. We do believe that there are just too many scenarios to really list out what would be substantial versus non-substantial. It really does depend on the unique project and all the circumstances surrounding that.
So are you saying that if this was passed and so only substantial changes were required, circle back with me on your section about the inspector. You said that our inspectors in the field are not, what did you say about the inspectors?
They do not, they inspect to approved plans. So when the building permit goes through and you have the set of plans that have been approved by DPP and other agencies, they look at those plans and they see if the construction is to what was approved, as opposed to inspectors that approve to code, where they're trained to understand all the different parts of the code and they can go out, look at what's being built and say whether it is to code. So we are, and I would like, again, I'd like my inspectors to be trained to inspect to code, but we're not there yet. At that time, I think we could move into more of where the inspection can play a larger role in the building permit process, but at this time we are not ready to do that.
I hear what you're saying. So you're saying the inspectors are basically looking at a plan, and if the plan is modified, they wouldn't know if we're changing a building code. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So if this said, if substantial changes that were within the International Building Code, meaning that it did not violate the International Building Code, would that be acceptable?
I mean, it just comes back to what is approved in the plans. I think,
because you refer to the International Building Code, right? So I'm kind of seeing it as like a skeleton, right? The International Building Code gives you like a nice little outline to follow. So if this said substantial changes are the only way that you would have to start all over, or anything that modifies the International Building Code, would that be acceptable? Because what you're saying is an inspector could go out there, and if they could inspect to code, then possibly this would be something that would be okay, but we're not there. But if there was a way for us, and there were small, minor changes that did not violate the International Building Code, would that be approval?
Well, so I think to some degree they do that to an extent. They're able to say, is this minor that I'm not concerned that it may violate code? Then those actually are fine. That's the discretion of the inspector to say, I'm comfortable knowing what I know, what I'm seeing, that should not violate code. The issue is that what we allow our inspectors to do is they say, I don't see this on the plan, and in my discretion, I am better off having the plans examiner determine it if it is to code, the change, and to allow that to happen through re-review. Then it'll come back, it'll be in the plan, and I can check for it. I think if these are, truly minor changes, or, when it comes back, it shouldn't be a full, lengthy review. It should be specific to that change. If nothing else is changed, I don't think it's going to be the extended type of review, because it is just one part.
I hear you, Director. In an ideal world, that's what we would hope. I think that in the actual written law, that the way that it's written, it really is making any change come all the way back through. But I hear you. I think really that's what we would hope for, right? Is if it is that minor, that there wouldn't be a huge backlogging coming back through. I'll allow other people to ask questions. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you. Thank you, Director, for the lengthy testimony. Just for our edification, is there someone from the inspection branch here that we could also ask specific questions to? Or any other, I guess, besides you?
Not from my inspection group.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, I'll dive in. I guess the whole point of why we're here is we have this existing language which ostensibly is applicable all around the country. I mean, the language that we have where work done must be according to the construction documents and the building official may approve or disapprove it. This seems to work in every other jurisdiction, but doesn't seem to be working here. And I want to dive into why that is. So you've mentioned that we're not here yet, quote unquote, we're not here yet when it comes to the inspectors being able to inspect to code. Is this a training problem or is this a vacancy problem?
That would be a training issue that we're working on, trying to get the training to our inspectors to inspect to code.
So even if we had a full roster of inspectors within DPP, they wouldn't be doing this anyway, as of right now?
Without training, they would not. To inspect a code, no.
Is that a goal? Do we have a timeline to get there?
To inspect to code,
yes.
I think with all the improvements going on right now, that would be an extra layer. But I think we are trying to figure out how we could get inspectors to be able to inspect a code. But we continue to use the same process to inspect to approve plans.
Okay. And then within the inspection branch, I guess this is the construction inspector branch, what's a vacancy count? What's the full staffing there and what's a vacancy count?
For building inspectors, I don't know the specifics. The last I checked, I think there are several vacancies. Yeah.
So yeah, I see online we're advertising for 8 vacancies of construction inspector SR19 positions. It opened in September. Have we received applications for that? What's the process to get these warm bodies into these positions to be able to get out into the field?
Yes, like any other process for hiring, we put it out there. The branches do interviews, and I've seen them come through my office because I sign off on hires, so that we are.
So since putting this out in September, how many of these applications have come across your desk? Have we gotten any warm bodies since you put this out?
I believe so. I know we've hired some building aid inspectors. That's like the bottom level, and you work your way up to inspector, et cetera.
If I could get more information on this, that would be really helpful, because we're putting this out and this seems to be a backlog. The other issue that seems to be the problem is it was claimed that the problem is that HFD wouldn't know what the building looks like after the fact. If we were to build in something into this legislation to require the design professional or applicant to submit as built after the fact, they have to certify it. Would that satisfy this issue?
I think that would be a step in the right direction, but I think, we really would like to have certified approved plans, that we are confident show exactly what's out there.
Well, this gets me to my last question. This was brought up in some of the testimony regarding Bill 7 projects. I appreciate that DPP would like to have plans that are submitted that are seemingly in compliance. In fact, they're certified to be in compliance by design professionals, and ROH 32-1.5 requires that these plans be approved or disapproved within 90 days. If they are not, 32-1.5 says they shall be deemed approved, shall, not may. I brought this up in your confirmation hearing. We wouldn't be needing this bill if we were able to meet these deadlines. And certainly in statute, we as the council have said on day 91, you need to be able to go to the Fosse building and get your permit in hand, and this isn't happening. So what assurances can you give me that 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, that an applicant can go to the Fosse building on day 91 and get their permit in hand?
They can, and they have been able to do that. If you look at the current list of Bill 7 projects in process, right, I think we have maybe 40 or so, I could be wrong. The majority of the large majority of them are still with the applicant. So it is, there's a process. And once 90 days comes, I think you're expecting an automatic, okay, there you go, here's your building permit. But if you look at each application in reality, they're not there. They still have it, and I think it's on it's their responsibility to be like, okay, 90 days, give me my permit. But I think the reality is it's with the applicant. They are trying to comply with the code. They are trying to work through the system to get an approved plan that shows that they are code compliant. So I don't believe that these developers necessarily want to, maybe there's a few, they don't want to go through and just say after 90 days, even if we haven't gone through review, that this project is good to go and I'm ready to build it. They do rely in part on DPP to review so they can have the confidence that their project is sound and safe.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear that this is starting to move in the correct direction. But as you know, as projects, you go out into the field and there's conditions that need to be changed, you'd have to come back to DPP. And that's, I think, what this bill is trying to speak to. And so my concern is that if we don't provide some sort of alternative pathway, you could end up in a situation where you need to make a legitimate design change, and it's going to take forever, and you're going to be sitting there out in the field with a half-built building. So what, short of this, can we create a pathway where this happens in a timely way? I guess what I fail to hear in your testimony is a recognition that this is an urgent problem. Is this an urgent problem?
The urgency to get permits through and to be re-reviewed it's an urgent problem that we are working on. As far as the Bill 7 projects, they're all priorities. So when they come in, they go to the top of the pile. So I don't think they should be having a problem. That's one way, because it's affordable housing related. So that's one way that we can prioritize them. For all others, there's just some hidden dangerous circumstances if we aren't very clear and accurate about things. I think we could be opening the floodgates for a lot of bad things to happen. Overall, though, we're trying to be faster. We are working on it. We have come down in our review times, and we're going to continue to bring it down. I assure you that is the goal, and that will address this issue, so that if you do have a change during construction, submit your revision and it'll be fast. That is, whether it's more people to do the reviews, the technology, all of that, we completely agree. We need to be faster, and that's going to address that. In a year's time, I think this will not even be an issue. People will be able to say, I made this change in the field, here it is, put it through, and you're going to get it back quickly. It won't be a question.
Well, that's good to hear. Okay, two more questions, Chair, if I may. If not Bill 19, are you able to provide us with 1, 2, or 3 alternative pathways to getting this done between now and next year when everything's going to be solved?
I think we're working on it, but I think that, you bring up a really great point about capacity. If there are ways that we can just increase and multiply the number of people that can work on these things, that will be a surefire way of making things go faster. So I will look at that as far as, like you said, inspectors and what more we can do to make sure that they're out there responding quickly, and then our re-review of changes. That solid way to make sure that we are responsive, fast, and we can ensure health and safety.
Okay, and then last question. For all these changes that you're suggesting are going to happen over the course of next year, is that reflected in the proposed executive budget?
To some extent, yes, but we do understand that with the very challenging hiring process and just being able to get people on board, we are using salary savings, knowing that there's certain positions open that we either need to fill, whether it's the engineers that we are struggling with, or we are adding capacity as we speak, and it might not be reflected in exact additional positions, but we know that what we've presented and we're proposing in our budget should provide those additional resources.
Yeah, thank you.
Members, any other questions? If not, I'm going to return back to Councilmember Tupolo.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, for those questions. And I do agree that, definitely looking at the staffing, and I appreciate the progress that you guys are making. I think, just to hone in on, I guess, the very tail end of what we call closeout, right? So the moment that all of the things have been inspected, approved, and then there's the certificate of occupancy. I'm just going to focus on that part. So I think, in one of the testimonies, that was the problem. The inspector did approve the modification. They said, this is allowed, this is within code. But then in order to get the certificate of occupancy, you needed an amended permit to say that that modification was approved. So that's kind of what, I just wanted to make it very clear that there was no on the job, we changed this and it was illegal and it was unsafe. It was approved by the inspector, but then to get that certificate of occupancy, you have to have the amended permit saying that those modifications were approved, and that's when it goes back through the cycle. And just to kind of add on, I had a developer in my community that had probably the best project I've had in my district in many, many years, affordable housing, and it was the certificate of occupancy. It was that little gap of getting that permit and then get that, and I could be wrong, but that particular person told me that when they begged the inspector after 8 weeks of waiting, where we almost lost federal funding for our preschool, they almost had to pay everybody's rent because everyone had already given their 30-day notice to their places that they lived, but yet we couldn't move in because no certificate of occupancy. They begged the inspector and found out that that person had 3,000 open permits that they were trying to do quickly inspect. And so somehow we got up there, but I think that little gap, Director, I think that's what we're talking about. Not the part where we're trying to modify the building, do things unsafe, but it's been deemed safe, the inspector said it's good, and then boom, you got to pull yourself all the way back through to get an amended permit.
No, I appreciate that. That I think we can focus on that part of the process and see how we can maybe put it at the top of the pile kind of thing. I got to see how we could do that, but that is different than.
Understood.
Yeah.
I think I hear you. I heard what he said. Now I'm kind of honing in on exactly where we need to hit it, because many people are good to go, approved, and then sits vacant until that certificate of occupancy comes. So thank you, Director, for understanding. Thank you, Chair.
Members, we're now going to be proceeding to testimony, public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have a few standing by.
When I call your name, please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name for the record. Please conclude your remarks promptly when you hear the buzz of the timer. The first testifier is Gina Thielen.
Aloha, Chair Kiaʻāina, Chair Waters, members of the committee. My name is Gina Thielen. I'm here to testify in support of Bill 19. Wow, that was a lot of information, and it kind of blew up my whole planned testimony, so I'm just going to kind of wing it. I would like to address two things that came up. Number one, I have been building in Hawaii for 34 years. Every single inspector that comes onto our job site inspects to code. They may also check the plans. That's also part of what they do, but they inspect to code. Whether or not they're supposed to, I don't know, but they inspect to code. In addition, building codes are intended to be interpreted. They're subject to interpretation all the way across. They are not black and white. They are not laws written. The reason other jurisdictions don't modify this particular provision is because they don't have the policies that DPP has adopted. And I'm referring specifically to the zero tolerance policy. And what that is a policy that says any change, no matter how insubstantial, is worthy of getting an amended permit. I have worked with the prior deputy director to get this addressed, and we had come up with a solution that has since been abandoned since he left. I'm sorry, I know I'm supposed to wrap up, but if I could just conclude, I would like to just explain this diagram that was attached to my testimony really quickly. This is 3 drawings of the same electrical closet at one of our Bill 7 projects. The drawing at the top is what was submitted by our architect and engineer. It has outswing doors with 3 electrical panels inside. The plan checker refused to accept this because they felt that there was a car that could be parked in the loading zone adjacent to it that might block access to those doors. Now, cars are not part of the building code. However, it doesn't make sense to argue with DPP, so we agreed and we changed the plans to the second design. The second design is a pair of bypass doors. In order to make this design work, we had to make the middle electrical cabinet become a telephone cabinet, because you can't have an obstacle that close to an electrical cabinet. You have to have clear space in front of it. This was approved by DPP, by the electrical plan checker. It is on our permit set of drawings. When the inspector came out to the field, he said a telephone cabinet is an electrical cabinet. Again, code interpretation, what I would disagree with. But he said this is not allowed. He refused to accept the permitted drawing because he said it didn't meet code. So we agreed to take those doors down, and we created the third design. This is 4 bypass doors that can be stacked to one side or another. So every single electrical panel inside that closet can have the clear space in front of it, which the electrical inspector then approved. In addition to this change, there was one other insubstantial minor change where we moved the location of the conduit that brings the power to the building from the left side of the building to the right side of the building. Nothing else changed, same size conduit, same size wires, same amount of power. We were told, even though everything is good, go get an amended permit. Between when the building was completed and ready for occupancy until the time that we were able to get that amended permit and then get a CO, took 3 months. That concludes my testimony, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that clarification. And I do think that written in here, when we put amended construction documents, just for clarity, you're saying that DPP inspectors do inspect to code. So if that's the case and that code is supposed to be interpreted, we're only touching this part that says amended construction documents. Based on what the director said, do you feel like there's another way we could hone in just on that section? Or do you feel like this is the best way for us to get there, seeing as though that 3-month delay was for the amended permit, not for a new one, for an amended permit?
Thank you very much for the question. So the workaround that we came up with the prior deputy director was that if an inspector felt the building was safe and complete and ready for occupancy, but they still wanted to see amended permit drawings, they would issue a TCO, or temporary certificate of occupancy. That policy has since been shut down and is no longer available to us. But in my opinion, that would be the best way to do it. The problem is that relies on the discretion of the people that are making these decisions. And in my opinion, they're making decisions that are not taking into account the needs of the people of Hawaii, which includes affordable housing and access to the buildings that they built.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ms. Hingham, for your testimony as always. Do you know when the TCO program ended?
I don't. It wasn't a formal program. TCOs still exist and are still used. I'm not sure where the decision was made. I believe many of you have seen some of our Bill 7 projects. Our first Bill 7 project at 1427 Ernest Street went through this exact same process, was given a TCO, and then we got our amended permit about 2 months later, and we got the CO. So sometime between the completion of the Ernest building, late 2023, and the completion of the Kiaʻāina building, August 2024, it changed.
Okay, mahalo.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next testifier, Lee Tokuhara.
Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam, and members of the Zoning Committee. I am Lee Tokuhara, and on behalf of D.R. Horton, Hawaii, thank you for this opportunity to submit testimony in strong support of Bill 19. Amendments to construction documents are sometimes needed to address or react to changing factors within the construction industry. The types of amendments, as we've heard, can widely vary, and the current lengthy process for amending such documents presents significant challenges for various project stakeholders. Bill 19, we believe, introduces reasonable modifications to the building permit process to more efficiently facilitate needed changes that may arise during the construction process by defining what is a substantial change. Furthermore, the proposed changes could have a positive impact on the Department of Planning and Permitting, as its already overburdened staff would not have to review minor changes. Bill 19 fosters a more efficient construction environment without compromising life safety or compliance with building regulations. This improvement is particularly crucial in addressing Honolulu's urgent housing and infrastructure needs. Thank you for allowing me to testify in support of Bill 19.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? If not, we're going to move to the next testifier, Roseanne Freitas.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me testify this morning. I'm Roseanne Freitas, the CEO with the Building Industry Association of Hawaii. I represent all builders. And part of, I did want to address, because that was a lot to unwrap, that when we look at other jurisdictions, what I can tell you, I do have the privilege of talking with the other 49 states. Our biggest issue is the time. Our permits take so long in comparison to everyone else. So that is probably why they don't necessarily have to amend certain bills to get things to go through. But then when we also look at the cost, every delay adds. And if we look at what's happened in the last month and with the tariffs rolling in this week, anybody in the building permit process now will have to reconsider their projects, and that impacts every aspect of what we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions? Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? please come forward to the testifier podium and begin by stating your name.
Thank you, Chair. Kika Bukowski. I do want to express significant concerns on this bill. I wasn't planning on testifying, but hearing the testimony this morning, I felt compelled to at least say that I completely support and agree with the comments that were made by the DPP director. There are significant concerns with this bill. There's an old saying, penny wise, pound foolish. There are a myriad of bills working its way or were working its way through the legislature to circumvent building codes and standards intended to protect public health and safety. We do see that this bill could potentially circumvent what's intended to protect the public. We don't believe that, we do understand the plight that the housing industry has, and we support efforts to streamline and expedite permits and construction, however, not at the cost of safety. And we feel that this bill as written could basically essentially circumvent. What it does is it shifts, and I'll finish, Chair. It shifts the burden or the discretion, I guess, and then the last testifier mentioned that they want the discretion of people making decisions. It shifts the discretion from people who are representing the public, not third party, but objective people that work for the city, that are their job is to protect the public. They're impartial, objective parties. But what this bill is trying to do is shift that discretion to people that are basically retained by the developers or the contractors. We see huge conflicts of interest. We also see a potential conflict with state law. 107-28 references chapter 46-1.513, which limits the authority of the counties to amend codes that exceed the standards, not to minimize or diminish the standards. And that's what this bill does, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you, Mr. Bukowski, for being here. When you say we, who are you representing?
Right now, I'm representing myself as someone who has been very much involved with the State Building Code Council for many years and very involved in this particular issue.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for yours. I can assure you that we are not trying to shift any discretion. In fact, we're trying to eliminate discretion and just be very black and white on what's accepted and what's not, so that we can help local families live in homes. But thank you for testifying. Thank you, Chair.
Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify in person? If not, we are going to move forward to remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have Angela standing by.
Angela, please proceed.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young. I'm testifying on behalf of CARES, although soon I'll be testifying as an agent because I'm an agent in training. So I'm saddened to hear about the firefighter, but I believe it. And yet the public pressure from the community can create enormous pressure to choose a side and to push forward with a decision to speed up review in DPP. And I think it'd be interesting to get a brief disparity study across Honolulu County about what communities need speeded up reviews and what communities can afford super fancy rich developers to better accommodate those needs. Why? Because I've been going to advocate at the state, and I've heard discussion from the Maui representative in response to wildfire recovery events in Maui, that there is a sense of urgency for third-party review proposals to be considered without violating safety, building codes, and environmental review processes. Although this discussion is not even in Honolulu, we can see from example, there are circumstances and emergencies to expedite processes, and yet, within Honolulu, there is a wide variety of projects, disproportionate communities in Waianae. What are those needs? And what is the county's DPP office doing to meet the needs of such different demographics and communities to elevate and transform building codes in Oahu to meet the needs of the different communities?
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Neutral and in
members,
comment.
Any questions? I wanted to thank everybody. We had, very important items up for discussion today, including Bill 19. So thank you for the department. Thank you for all of you who've taken time to come here to testify. So for all of the members being here today. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.